Morning, skull draggers, and thanks very much for joining us. We're on the banks of the beautiful Boggy Creek this morning. Going to go out and see if we can find a flat skull or two. So come with us, we're going to have a bit of an adventure. So we've headed out. It's dead low tide, as you can see at the moment, and tide's just starting to push in this morning. So we're expecting some pretty good wind conditions, and hopefully with a bit of luck, a couple of fish mixed in amongst them. So we'll be expecting that tide to come in. So what we're going to do is make our way down to the mouth of Boggy Creek and try a few spots down there, and then we're going to fish back with the tide. So at the moment, running a couple of double clutches out here, a couple of old favourites, see if we can pick ourselves up a flat skull. Now, as we're coming into these summer months, obviously even early in the morning sun glare is a bit of an issue, so you don't really want your day cut short by a nasty case of sunburn. So always a good idea to cover up, slap on some SPF 50, or basically just try and get out of that sun. So really today wearing a buff is going to be one of those things. Normally wear a cap while we're yakking, just makes it a little bit easier. Some people prefer a hat, I prefer a cap, but then you've got to cover up the sides of your face, otherwise you're going to have issues there. So remember, make sure you slip, slop, slap, get out and enjoy it. Definitely going to be requiring a bit for this one. There's number one. Alright. Good one. Good size, that one. Probably around about that 45 mark. Not a bad fish. Good eating size, that one, so you might be coming home for the table, I think. And the assassin's on. It's funny how you find these guys sort of sitting in one particular place. And over time, we come back to Boggy Creek because we sort of think that this little area here, being at the forewaters of the Brisbane River, affords quite a lot of bait, and obviously there's a lot of huge predators in the Brisbane River. So these guys are coming up here trying to get out and away from them at the same time, trying to catch a feed, trying to survive, get on with their lives. But yeah, Boggy Creek, if you ever get a chance to fish it, it's a pretty good flathead fishery, and one that we enjoy coming to fish. Got to put up with some noisy airplanes, but you know, that's how it goes. Alright, so that one was taken basically on that brown trout colour. Basically it's a yeah, on the dye with double clutch. We run on the double clutches because they just seem to work. Never have too many problems, run about that metre and a half, and yeah, for the shallow water fishery these double clutches certainly go off. I know a lot of other people prefer different types of lures, but this is one that works for us. Definitely going to be keeping with them. Alright, let's get this guy out and have a bit of a look. Right, so not a bad fish, good eating size, probably around that 45 centimetre mark. So fantastic way to start the day, and always nice to get the donut off the back. And again, same little spot, just capitalising on those deep holes, looking for these fish. This guy's fighting a bit differently. Could be a flatty or a brim, depending upon the way he's going. It feels like a brim, yeah. It's actually not a bad brim. So you can see these guys will take a double clutch without any problems at all. If I can get old mate out here. As you can see, not a bad little brim. Probably going about that 30 centimetre mark. So for a lot of those guys out there that are chasing brim, if you like one of those, but it's your lucky day today, son. Alright, let's get ourselves a proper fish. Run again, pretty much the same spot we got the last one. Running these double clutches a fair way out. He's just cruising in with it at the moment. Starting to come up there now. Yeah. Right tight. Maybe just a shade too small. But just goes to show you, when you find them, you're definitely going to be sitting there with a few of their mates. So, always a good idea to mark that spot as you come over it with your GPS. And that just so happens to be a spot I've marked before. So, caught a few good fish there. So again, not a huge fish. And again on the brown dog, the brown spotty, or the brown trout as it would be. So again, not a bad little fish. Only probably around about that, I don't know, 25 centimetre mark, but he's going to grow up and make the dreams of an angler one day. So let's let this little fella go. What I sometimes find interesting is at different creeks, when I'm trying these two different particular colours of double clutch that I'm normally running, is that, you know, we'll put all the brim on the more silver looking bait profile and all the flathead on the darker style bait profile with spots, whereas the silver one has stripes. Now, whether or not that really makes a difference in the grand scheme of things, very hard to tell. But one of the things for certain, if you're finding something that works and you just happen to have another one of those that's going to hone in on your target species, then if you've got another one of those sitting in your tackle box, it might just be a good idea to throw that one on, see if you can double your catch rate. Sometimes that works, other times not so much, but it's often a good idea to actually carry multiples of the same lure, so when you find something that's working, you can change over and maybe try and increase that catch rate. Funny bite, that one. Came up and sort of more or less nibbled the back of the lure. So expecting this one maybe to be a brim, but I don't know, maybe not. Starting to feel a little bit of weight there now, so maybe this will be a better fish. Let's see what we got. Coming up fairly steady. A bit of weight there now. Some big head shakes. It's a nice lizard. Sometimes it's just hard to tell. That was a extremely gentle take, and essentially as I was trolling along, he picked it up and was coasting with the lure. And then all you could see, all you could feel essentially, was this guy just tearing at the back. So not a bad fish again, probably on the mark, looking close to a 50. So it just goes to show you, sometimes they're a real gentle take. And he's got that double clutch again, just to make a liar out of me. This one just happened to come on a on the stripy one that I've been catching all the brim on. So just goes to show you, you just never know. But again, cracking fish and good eating size. So we're after a feed today, and look, I subscribe to the fact that, you know, there's a lot of fish in the sea, and you do want to take a couple for a feed. And at the end of the day, there's no harm in doing that. And if you're catching the big girls, obviously the eating quality is a lot less, in which case you probably want to let those guys go to breed up. But this is a pretty good looking fish just the same, and again, quite a surprise catch. Alright, another nice fish. Again, slight twitch, and sat there with that in his mouth. Very interesting take today. Absolutely incredible, actually. This one's got a bit of weight. I don't think he's done yet. He's going to play up when we get to the boat. So I'm holding a lot of weight here. Just make sure my drag's going to be okay. Nice fish. Getting to inhale that. Not absolutely huge, but certainly got that one down near his butt. That's what we love to see. So again, inhaling those. Holding a lot of weight on that one. It was quite interesting. You know, you sort of think sometimes that maybe he was just going sideways. Maybe it was the angle of lure. He's got two lots of hooks and it's probably pulling him across the current a little bit there. So not a bad little fish. We'll pop him on the measure. He's probably going about that 40-42 mark. Might be another nice fish for the pan. Feels like there's a bit of weight on this guy. We'll see how he goes when we get him up. But definitely starting to fight now. He's a nice solid fish. Again, extremely gentle take. We got leader starting to come up now. That is a cracking flathead. A little too early on the net shot there. You always get a little bit, when you get these guys up like this, and you can see those hooks are only just hanging in there. Get your head down there, son. That is an awesome fish, and it's exactly what we were trying to find. So again, Really gentle take. That thing basically just bumped it. And I just seen the rod tip bump and then stop vibrating, and essentially he swam along with the lure in his mouth, just being guided by it. So it's at that point in time, you just don't want to panic. You want to get that thing, and you just want to try and set those hooks. And luckily enough, they held. That is a cracking flathead in anyone's language. So again, around about 60 to 65 centimeters. So quite a nice little fish. Probably about 63, I'm reckoning, just by looking at the girth and what she looks like. But fantastic, again, taking on that stripy double clutch. It's just amazing how things change essentially as the tide comes in. They're really gentle takes today. You can hardly even feel them. So quite interesting. But we've found where they are and we've found what's working. We're just going to keep repeating that process and see if we can come up with some really big girls. But 62, going to take that all day. Now I'm suspecting that the takes today are quite gentle because we're using a real low trolling speed, anywhere up to about 2 kilometers an hour, 2 k's to 3 k's, just enough to get those lures digging into the mud. But the takes are extremely gentle. They're taking it, mouthing it essentially, and moving along with the lure. We haven't had one yet. Occasionally you'll get a brim come past and smash it, and it'll be a real rip of the rod. But the flatties are just basically, you just see the rod tip bump, and then she'll start to swim with it, and you want to tighten up and then hook up. Otherwise, they run the risk of them actually shaking that out. So paying attention to your rod tips is a key thing presently at the moment. So you can see right now we've slowed down to around about 2 kilometers an hour going with the actual tide, and in about 2 meters of water, that's allowing that double clutch to get down deeper, and you can actually see how they're just bumping along the bottom there, and you can feel occasionally you'll see the rod tip dig in. Now we know there's not a lot of structure in this area, and I've got a good lure retriever if I actually need to, but yeah, it's always a bit of a risk when you're bumping along the bottom that you're going to pick up a crab pot or some other type of structure. But definitely the go when you're chasing the flathead, you've got to get that lure right down into that target area. So if you can get it down there, follow the paths where they're going to be congregating. In this particular instance, there's a channel with a deep hole, and where that deep hole drops off or comes up is generally where they're sitting depending upon the tide. So think like a fish. Your life depends upon it. You need a feed. You're an ambush predator, so you actually want to sit out of the current on the bottom in the edge of a deep hole waiting for that bait fish to wander over the lip so you can grab him. Coming in all right there now. I'm starting to get to the leader. Nice fish, nice fish. Not huge, but a keeper. Just the same. Again, switched up the lures just to try something a little different, because I was finding the double clutches were just not getting down to the bottom because of the actual increase in the tide. So again, switching up to go slightly deeper, making sure that lure was bumping along the bottom, come up with a nice 45 centimeter flatty. So awesome. Just goes to show you just need to change. And again, that was in that very similar color to the lure we were catching them on earlier, so I've gone for that stripy color and bumped that along the bottom, just nice and slow, only about a kilometer or 2, just enough to get it working into the mud, get that bib into the mud, and come up with the goods. So as the tide changes and as your conditions change as you're out here, you want to mix up your retrieve, make it a little different, work out what's working, and then adjust your lures to suit the changes in the tide. Sometimes these guys can be a little bit deceiving. You whack this bloke on the measure, what I thought was going to be pushing 45 is actually a 47, nearly 48, so nice long skinny fish. Fantastic eating at that size. Things you catch sometimes. Obviously some sort of growth that grows around here that fish are hanging around. But, just glad I didn't lose my lure. Oh, that's gross. Alright, again, bumping along that bottom. And we are on, could be another decent fish. Easy one. Oh, look at that. Absolutely inhaled that lure. Not a really fan of coming into the net though. There we go. Oi. Oh. Made it out of the boat. So he's big enough to keep, but we've got plenty for a feed today. So we're going to let this fella go. It's your lucky day, sunshine. Pop you in the Overlord. Have a bit of a rest there, fella. When you're ready, on your way. See you, buddy. So always a good idea when you've had a flathead that's had your lure down that far into its mouth is to actually check to make sure that you haven't got any frays on your line, because they will rast through that, and the last thing you want is them making it weak for the next fish to come along, which could be your PB and might end up being that one that gets away. So check them every time just to be sure, especially when you've got a nice fish or it's inhaled that lure all the way down. But check them out, it's always a good idea to do. Well guys, thanks very much for joining us. We hope you learned something out of that video on how to actually fish Boggy Creek. So time's getting on about 10 o'clock now. Tide's coming in. Bite seems to have tapered off. We've made our way up the creek a little bit, looking to see if we can snag another one. But it looks as though the bite might finally be at its end. So we're going to sign off from here. But thanks very much for joining us. And like and subscribe to our YouTube videos if you want more of this content on learning how to fish different areas around the Brisbane area. And further abroad too, of course. So from all of us at SKULLDRAG, myself and the Silent Assassin, thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you next time out on the water.